Thanks. Since the last time I saw all of you, which was November of 2008, a lot has changed in some ways and nothing has changed in others. In that the thing that has not changed is I have way too many things to tell you. So I hope that you're seated comfortably enough in your awful JetBlue flight from hell seats. This is going to feel like it's going to be like 7 or 9 hours. Just so you know, and I know that none of you lost any sleep over the fact that I've not been here. Everybody who tells us what to do, Americans, Pashtun, fellow Afghans, we don't care. We just say no, 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 and no. And that's what they do in Afghanistan all the time. So I think the bigger issue that comes off the takeaway, as it were, from the Michael Hastings article is, it is time to get out of Afghanistan. And I wish all the luck for David Petraeus, our good general, because I want all these brave men and women to come home in one piece. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to be in there for another long, long, long time. Millions, if not billions of dollars are going to keep going into Afghanistan, and you and me, these mere citizens, are not going to see any real change that we can go, oh, it's getting better. What would better be? I don't know. Like I said, if you could point me out, so don't yell at me, madam, because I can't really hear what you're trying to tell me, because the way these venues are acoustically tuned, the sound goes that way. When it comes back, all I hear is that there's a woman yelling at me. So anyway, and so I think, ma'am, I can't even. I thank you, but you know what? When you talk, I just listen, and I'm not talking to them. So the show just kind of goes sideways. So, well, no, if you want to have a show that sucks, keep it up. Knowing, because basically, man, you'll win. You know, now we were in 5th gear, now we're in 4th. We were in a Lamborghini, now we're in a Mazda. You know what I mean? And so. And meanwhile, my dear, everyone around you wants to club you like a baby seal, trust me. Anyway, Missouri is a rough room. Look, and so, you know, I don't think really the issue with General Stanley McChrystal is the fact that he says, you know, naughty words now and then. I think that any policy that you're going to exact in Afghanistan is going to fail. It's one of those interesting parts of the world where things are just not going to work out our way. Why we keep hanging out there? I think it's male ego. The idea that America wins every single war. And if we can get off that idea, I think we can get very far up the road. The idea that young men are still enlisting, young women too, going into this place where, you know, the rebels have been running the rules for century after century. I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest of ideas, and I know that General Petraeus has his best intent in mind, and is no doubt burning the midnight oil as we speak, trying to come up with good ideas. And I know that our president certainly knows more than me and has more intelligence and more knowledge. But you know, I think it's time to do something else. There's that, and here's even a shorter thing. And yet one more thing you don't need to hear, but damn it, I have the microphone, I'm going to say it anyway. Here's something, I watch CNN every day, specifically to watch Anderson Cooper and what he's doing in the Gulf region. In that, I think he's asking really interesting questions, doing his best to get really, really good answers. Just like all of you, I'm furious about what happened, what is now happening to our oceans, to our environment, and to the Gulf Coast, and all the good people who are now losing their jobs, losing their entire way of life. I'm angry about all the seagulls and pelicans and all the fish and all the clams and oysters and everything else getting killed and covered in oil, as are you. And I think someone who's really on the front of that thing asking really kick-ass questions is Anderson Cooper. Here's the thing that makes me more furious than the damn spill itself. It's not a spill, it's an eruption. It's a damn disaster. The thing that makes me the most angry is that eventually, in my just an opinion, I could be wrong, I really want to be wrong about this, but I think that eventually Anderson Cooper is going to be told by CNN to back off. He's going to get up to some bright red shining line of inquiry, and eventually his keepers are going to say, you know what, you're getting up to that bright shining corporate line, you step over that, you bite into our bottom line, we will not have that, because eventually we all suck up to these corporate masters. And we used to think that we're free, we're going to bring truth to power, you can bring this much truth to power, but if you bring this much truth to power, you're fired. And so Anderson Cooper and any other news carrier will eventually have to back off, and eventually Barack Hussein Obama will have to back off. off, because he too is part of a big corporate nightmare. And so eventually he's going to have to admit that he's in corporate pockets and corporate zippers as well. And so he'll go up to something and then he'll say, well, let me be clear. And then he'll, let me be clear, I have to suck up to these corporations because we live in a corporate world. Then he'll have to stop. And if you think of any CEO or exec at BP who wants to tell you the truth when they have to pay $4,000 a barrel of spilled crude as compensation, they're going to fudge the numbers as best they can, because who wants to hemorrhage out money when you're a major corporation, when there's mere humans who are just complaining? It's when the bottom line and stockholders complain, that's one thing. When citizens losing their way of life, dipped in oil, breathing in noxious fumes, which screws them up and makes them vomit and pass out, that is just a mere inconvenience. And so what I think is going to happen is going to take citizen reportage. It's going to take someone to go down there with real cameras, real questions, and really kick a lot of ass. And that makes you and I have to depend on one another. Personally, I could be no happier than to have you to depend on. I like you, I trust you. I don't necessarily trust any government. I don't certainly trust the media, at this point, and I certainly don't trust anyone at BP, but you in general I trust. So I think it's going to be you and me, not waiting around for government, not waiting around for any newscaster or any CEO to get some things done. How that's going to manifest itself in the next several years as this awful thing plays out, as tornadoes and hurricanes disperse this thick crude on the ocean floor all over the world, I don't know. But I'm hoping for some good ideas and something I can throw my shoulder into, because when you see all that miserable footage of all these awful tar balls washing up on beaches, meanwhile state governors say there's no tar balls washing up on beaches, you see how corrupt the overall is. And P.S., all of those pelicans with all those nice people pulling the oil off them, the birds are already as good as dead. Animals will usually clean themselves before they'll feed themselves, and so all those birds are coated in crude. They've already been cleaning themselves all the time, so the oil is already in their digestive system, going into their liver and kidneys. They're dead already. The most merciful thing you can do, don't bother cleaning them off, just kill them quickly, because they're walking dead. Those are dead birds walking. It sucks, but it happens to be true. They never really show you those birds getting let loose again, because they always die off. Wow, what a bummer. I just dug this kind of misery hole, and we're all like, hop in, whee! But you know what? I think the real information is the best possible course. In that, not to candy coat it, because we Americans will get up, we will kick a lot of ass and get a lot of things done. It's the lie that obscures us from the truth. It's the lie that gets us killed. It's the lie that makes us think that everything is okay and no work gets done. And one thing that Americans are not is lazy. And we will get up, we will kick a lot of ass. And so there's that. Here's something else. I have been off the road a total of 20 days since last October. I've either been walking all over the world with a backpack and a camera going everywhere, or I've been on a stage. Tonight is the 127th show of this tour since January 12th. And so basically, thanks. I've been bouncing all over the place without much break. And I'm not trying to complain, because I'd rather have no break than a break. I'd rather be 7 nights a week on stage with an audience than off the road. Because being off the road for me is real life. I can't stand it. And I guess I'm immature. I'll at least never be mature enough to buy a Sting album. But you know what I mean? I don't want to grow up in that way. I'd rather be hopping, bopping, and popping, bouncing all over the world, being interactive, reactive, and proactive at all times. And so I live in California. It's not where I was born and raised. Born and raised in Washington, D.C. Moved to California in the summer of 1981 to pursue music. And I've been a resident ever since. It's kind of where my 2 milk crates of broken crap ended up. And many of you in your young adult life, you kind of ended up in a place that was not your home, because you had half a car's worth of crap in that bad apartment with a roommate who smelled. And you went, I guess I'm here. That's what happened to me in California. I'm like, wow, I'm 30, I'm still here. Wow, I'm 40, I'm still here. I guess this is where I live. And so the denial went away. So you live in California? I would just tell people I'm stationed in California. But as a guy who owns a home now, a utilitarian hovel I call my own, I live in California. And some people who don't live there, like me when I did not live there, I thought that California was kind of full of Big Lebowski types, and it was like this state full of laid-back people high on weed, in hammocks going, cowabunga, dude, or whatever. And as soon as I moved there, I found out that California is a terrifying state full of really scary people who shoot and stab and maim and distribute crystal methamphetamine up and down the coast on motorcycles, and that the law enforcement officials are the most terrifying I have ever encountered anywhere in America. And for a rated G samurai Boy Scout, I have encountered a whole lot of cops. And I don't break into cars, I don't break into houses, I don't abuse people, but I have had a lot of cop interaction in my life, and the scariest, most digital automatons, these cybernetic units, are in the state of California, where in New York City you can walk up to any cop, excuse me, officer, where's the Empire State Building? Hey, I recognize you, I thought you were taller, it's that way. Funny, it's gonna be okay. In Southern California, excuse me, sir, I'm looking for UCLA, step away from the vehicle. I was just asking, put your hand down. I'll take anything as a threatening gesture. I'm establishing command presence. I mean, it's heavy. And so I learned very early on as a 20-something to be very, very afeared in California. And so I've been out of the state for quite a while, touring everywhere else. And the other day, me and my worthy constituents, road manager Ward, Angel, and bus driver Tim, we rolled our Flying Dutchman, our Bon Jovi Mobile, our Def Leppard Express, our mobile carbon footprint. We rolled it in to the great state of California from either Washington State or Oregon. And we come in, and the thing that greets me, my welcome back to my home state, is a letter from a detective from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Detective LaBella, his greeting to me was not Dear Henry, it was my full name, my date of birth, and my driver's license number. Impersonal and intimidating. Was I impersonalized and intimidated? Oui. And so he said, comma, a very heavy complaint has been leveled against you, a very serious allegation has been leveled against you by a woman named Iris Lopez about something you did to her in a bar called Iguanas in a place called Pico Rivera, which I had to look up. I found out it's in Los Angeles. And like, I've been living there for like half of my life. I don't even know the city. That is the level of denial that I'm in. And I think it's somewhere, some awful stucco, killing field near the Los Angeles International Airport. And I looked up, Iguanas actually has an email address. It is a bar. But apparently on some night in America, I did something to Iris Lopez enough that upset her enough to where she called the cops on me. This detective is doing his job. He has to follow this up. He said, this complaint was leveled against you. He didn't tell me what it was, but he said it was very, very serious, and he needs to have a talk with me right now. As an innocent person, I, of course, was furious. And I don't know if any of you ever watch any of those cop shows. I will admit, I am fairly addicted to them, because I'm fascinated with the interrogation process when one or two detectives have someone in a room and they're browbeating them, trying to get information or a confession. And I always watch, what the cops do to kind of, peel away the onion layers of deceit and deception. But what I really find interesting is the mannerisms and body language of those, being questioned. And to me, the guilty, the tell, is always people who are submissive in the face of law enforcement, who put their arms around each other or put their arms inside their t-shirt. They'll get underneath their t-shirt, or they'll put a coat on as if to keep warm and somehow insulated from inquiry. And they'll, no sir, no, I would never do that, sir, no sir, no sir. They use the word sir all the time, and they try and come off like they're Bambi. Oh no, I'd never do anything. I'm the nicest person in the world. I'm super duper nice. Oh, golly gosh, I'm like Buddy Holly up here. No, golly, no, I would never do anything. And then they always invoke God or Jesus Christ, like that's going to help. As Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, sir, I would never do it. I'd never shoot 5 people in the face. No, I'd never. Oh, golly, whoever did that is a really scary person, but I'm not scary because I love God. And that to me is the tell. And perhaps I project too much. It seems to me if you're innocent, your primary posture is like, really? You have questions for me? Lay them on me, coach, because I'm all about the information. And certainly when I have been put in rooms and interrogated by detectives, and yes I have for days at a time, not having done anything, that's how I was, and maybe that's how I think everyone else should be too. Sorry about that, but that's how I was. We know that you've been buying marijuana from a local dealer in your neighborhood. Are you kidding me? That would never happen. And so I said, really? I'm buying marijuana? You're funny! That's really funny! What's the drug dealer's name? What's his name? What's his name? What's his name? Knowing he's pulling this out of some nether region. I said, what's his name? He's like, he's totally pulling it out of his ass. Mike. I go, really? Are you kidding me? Mike, the drug dealer? Does he have that on the back of his shirt when he goes on his tricycle and deals weed to everyone in my neighborhood? I don't know this person, Mike. Can we bring in Mike, the drug dealer, to have a little sit down and talk to find out how many lids of Mary Jane I'm buying? I don't even know the lingo. I smoked marijuana once, April 1987. I can't believe people pay to feel that way. I was so stoned, I couldn't put a glass of water down on a table without instruction. I was like, and so I said, Henry, what are you trying to do? I'm like, what were we talking about? Hey, I was so stoned. And they said, Henry, all you need to do is put the glass down. Like that? Yeah. And then I got into some esoteric discussion about the universe, and then I just kind of looked at my shoes for the next 20 minutes, like waiting for it to be over. Never again. Anyway, I fairly started yelling at the detective. I said, are you kidding me? And the guy got offended, like, you better... I said, really? Really? Check this. I was furious that we were wasting time. Anyway, that's, I reckon, how an innocent person would be, especially for me as a guy, with a woman levels a complaint against me saying that I did something to her. That offends me down to my core, in that I'm not the kind of guy who does things to women to have them call the cops and complain. Not only is it offensive, it's fairly terrifying. And so, in a fit of anger, I wrote the detective back, abiding by my First Amendment rights, which says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof, or abridging freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I mean, the part about freedom of speech is the part that's important there in the First Amendment as far as what I'm talking about. But I was respectful, but I was angry. I said, dear detective, you tell me what night I apparently did whatever it was at the Iguana Bar in Pico Rivera, because, pal, I have a fairly accurate record of almost every single night of my life for the last 30 years. And quite often there's photographic evidence and a whole lot of witnesses. So you get back to me on that gumshoe. And he did. And the next day, he wrote me back, and he said, here's what, we did some investigating into this case, and we went to Live Nation, and we found out that on the night of when this complaint was lodged against you, you were in Kelowna, Canada. No, I never heard of it either until I saw it on my itinerary. Kelowna, Canada is way up in Canada. It is indescribably beautiful. It's a vacation town for weary Canadians. It is pristine. The trees are beautiful. The body of water that you can water ski or canoe on is fantastic, and I enjoy a wonderful audience there. All 175 of them were like some small, wooden lodge. It was fantastic. We got to know each other by first name by the end of the thing. It's a good 1,500 miles or more away from Pico Rivera. So the detective comes to the conclusion that this woman is either full of it or very mistaken. Anyway, he says that he's going to deactivate the case in the next several days. Oh, so the case is still live. You still kind of don't believe me, even though that there's tons of witnesses say I was nowhere near it. And so I'm still pissed off. So I write the guy back. I said, dear detective, you're going to deactivate the case one fine day? You do that, chief. A little bit about me. A, I don't go into bars unless I'm working at them. B, I don't do anything to a woman which would have her call the cops and complain. C, I'm polite to everyone, except seemingly not detectives. But, so that's a little about me. And you found me via my website? Ooh, that's some serious First 48 bullshit. And I haven't heard back. And the thing that really bugged me the most about this thing after I sent off that second letter was the fact that I had to feel relieved, the fact that I had to feel lucky. Because I'd like to think that I'm pretty free in my America, and I love the Constitution, all 7 articles and 27 amendments, and I read it every day. Literally, I carry a copy with me, and I advise you do too. It's a fantastic bit of work, nothing you can't get your head around. And a lot of the amendments, of course, can be debated, like the 2nd, the 10th, and the 14th. They go round, and I'm not going to get into any of that with you all tonight. I'm just saying, it's a hell of a thing to read. None of it will escape you. None of it goes over your head. It's written by the people for the people. And I literally read out of it every night before I go on stage, like a man reads from the Quran or the Bible or the Talmud. I just hit my Constitution every single day. I think it's kind of cool. Anyway, I would like to think that I'm free in this country, but what if some woman gets some wild idea and wants to drop a dime on me and say that I did something to her? All of a sudden, I'm not so free. And what if on one of those those 20 nights in the last 7 or 8 months, I was off the road. What if that was the night she said I did something to her? My alibi would not be I was thousands of miles away with a whole bunch of people who will tell you that they did see me talk for way too long on a stage. My excuse would have been the truth, but it would have been dodgy. My excuse would have been, my alibi would have been sounding like an excuse. I was home, listening to music, looking at things on the internet, reading, writing. That is the boring drip that I am standing in front of you at age 49. That's what I do when I'm off the road. I catch up on music. I sit and listen to the jams. I read something. I write something. I look at something on the internet. I exist for several hours at a time without the Damocletian sword of a show that waits for me every night at 8 p.m. Dangling over my head by the proverbial single horsehair. And I'm not putting down having a show every night, but by 4 p.m., all I can think about is this, because I don't want to screw up. And so when I'm off, I'm like, wow, there's no Damocletian sword of obligation over my head. I'm going to listen to a record and not be preoccupied. But when I would say that to a detective, he'd say, well, do you have any witnesses? No, except the walls. No, I have no witnesses. Well, then you and I are going to have a talk. And this thing could have gone on and on and on if I did not have a proper alibi. And so it made me mad. And as a 20-something, I would have basically wanted to kill the entire human race. Every single one of you, as cool as you are, and you're as cool as it gets, I know, but all of you have wanted that virtual flamethrower when in traffic, when at the bank, at the airport, at the DMV, because all those people ahead of you seemingly don't know how to do what they want to do in line at the DMV, the bank, the airport, or in traffic. And you want, really? Are you kidding me? I'm still standing here? And hose down all those people with gasoline, and all the people behind you are, thank you for standing up. That was so great. And the lady behind the counter, thank you, that guy was such an idiot. And the battery ran out, and I would keep pressing the handle for the trapdoor to open and drop him into the mailroom, but we couldn't do it. So thank you for killing all of those people ahead of you. Thank you so much. Don't mind the smell. We'll get rid of it later. And so all of you have had that feeling. I've been in front of audiences. I felt that way when they tried to light my testicles on fire with a butane lighter, or throw ashtrays at my head, or put out their cigarettes on my shins. And all of that has happened to me. And was it everyone in the crowd who came forward with a Marlboro? No, it was like 2 idiots. But should they all die? Oh, yes! We're dying! And I'm laughing. I thought it was hilarious. But as an older fellow who's traveled all over the world and found people to be quite good most of the time, and having a wonderful audience I enjoy nightly, I can no longer paint with so broad a brush and say people suck. And it's a great thing to hang on to that. And it's a real drag to be an adult sometimes, because you have to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and you have to listen and not hurl judgment too quickly, because the guy with the douchebag haircut might help you one day, so you can't make too much fun of the mullet, because he might be a really cool guy who you might need one day. And so that's unfortunately how it is for me, where, you know, I realize one psychotic woman in Los Angeles dropping a dime on me does not make every woman bad or every person bad. But thankfully, I have a nice audience, folks like you, in fact you, who are cool to me. And so it was the fact that I can rely on good people to do the right thing more often than not that kind of steered me through that. Because I felt really angry for a while that this woman had done something. But you know what? Maybe it could have been that woman was assaulted or whatever it was at a bar by some guy saying he was me. And maybe one day Iris Lopez will meet me and she'll be like, oh, you couldn't have been that guy, because that guy was so much more taller and had darker hair and was so much more handsome and charismatic than you when he was groping me, or whatever it was. And I'm like, hey. Ooh, dodged a bullet. And so there's that. Here's something else. I've been going all over the world on this tour, and I was in Canada for a while, and then I went back down to America for a while. And from America, I went to Australia, and I did a lot of shows in Australia, 27th trip to Australia since 1989. I like them, they like me, we get along. And I bounced out of Australia. I went Australia, New Zealand, Australia to South Africa. And in South Africa, I have an amazing audience, and this year I did 3 shows instead of 2 like I did the first time. The first time I went to South Africa was a couple of years ago, and I was in Johannesburg and Cape Town. This time I was in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Pretoria. And so this time when I was there, the Nelson Mandela Foundation got in touch with me, and they said, we like you, we like the work that you've done in South Africa on behalf of AIDS and HIV awareness, which I did a while ago, and we'd like to meet up with you. I said, okay, can I meet Nelson Mandela? And they went, no. I said, well, What's he doing this afternoon? He's home watching MacGyver, and he's not taking any phone calls. And I reckon if there's one man on the planet who doesn't have to pick up the phone, get all the free pizza he wants, and watch MacGyver, and not have to do anything for anyone, it would be Nelson Mandela. And then he's like 118 years old, and he gave enough, it's okay. And I'm sure he's tired of saying, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. So they said, you can come down to his building and take a small tour. And I was in Johannesburg. I said, I'm in. And so I went to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and I was met by a guy there named Cello, who was a staffer there, and he gave me a brief tour of the place. And he takes me into a room, small room, and he says, have a seat. And I sit down at this table, and I said, where am I? And he said, you are in the room that holds all of Nelson Mandela's archives, all his written correspondence, his speeches, and all his photographs. And we know that you are interested in things, so we pulled out a few things for you to look at. And he gives me a couple of notebooks that belong to Nelson Mandela, notebooks he wrote in when he was incarcerated at Robben Island off the coast of Cape Town. And so these are handwritten notebooks, and we keep a lot of notes, a lot of ideas. He had a lot of time on his hands, but he had a very active mind. And so thankfully the prison guards gave him, I guess, all the notebooks that he wanted. And so for several minutes I went very carefully through these notebooks that were written in Nelson Mandela's own hand. And a lot of the ideas went over my head, but the thing that really got me, that really moved me, was his correspondence. All of his outgoing mail, he would copy into these notebooks, so we at least have a record of what he wrote. And so quite often the letters were to different relatives, and the letters were of great concern. The letters were oh, I'm angry, I'm in a prison cell, boy, do I got worried. It was him worrying about other people, like, dear nephew, your mother told me the other day that you were very sad. Well, I want you to cheer up and take good care of your sister, because she looks up to you, and you should do that, and make sure to listen to your mother, Uncle Nelson, or whatever. And never were any of the letters out of pity. It was always great concern, how are you doing? What's going on in your world? You know what I'm doing, a whole lot of nothing. And so the idea that a guy could be in such dire circumstances, as you know, Nelson Mandela basically spent a massive portion of his life banged up in prison for merely standing up for civil rights and saying no to apartheid. And for that, the world can't thank the man enough. But he wasn't the only one, certainly. A lot of other people did a whole lot of time who don't get enough mention, like Walter Sisulu and Dennis Goldberg, people like that. Anyway, it was nice to hang out with these people, and I read the notebooks for quite a while. And then I was taken into the mail room, where all the incoming mail comes in, and everything is databased and cataloged. Nelson Mandela gets a lot of gifts, sculptures, paintings of him, lots of books. And it was the books that interested me the most. There's a pancake stack of books, incoming books to Nelson Mandela. I go to the stack, and the top book on the stack was from the then Prime Minister of England, Gordon Brown. I was like, wow, Gordon Brown, I bet it's personalized by Gordon Brown, who was at the time the Prime Minister. He stepped down like 5 days later. And I open up the book, and sure enough, it says, Dear Nelson, here's my new book, Gordon Brown. I'm like, damn, autographed by the Prime Minister of England, that's pretty damn cool. And there's a letter shoved inside the book. So I pull out the letter, and I very carefully open it, and it's a personal letter from Gordon Brown to Nelson Mandela that basically says, Dear Nelson, check out my book. If you get a chance, hit up my Facebook page, dude, and let me know. Skate safe with all the proper equipment. Love and kisses, Gordon Brown, or whatever it said. And I said, damn, that's pretty cool. And I fold it up and I put it back in the book. I said, Cello, has Nelson Mandela seen this book or this letter? He said, no. I said, will he ever see that letter? He said, probably not. Which is interesting to me, that even the Prime Minister of England does not get an audience with Nelson Mandela. So I felt a little better that I didn't either. And so when you're in South Africa, or at least when I'm in South Africa, the word apartheid comes up fairly often. And as all of you know, apartheid was basically government-instituted racism. It was racism in the books. Basically, a black South African could not do this, or this, but a white South African could. And every once in a while, when a black South African would say, hey, that seems a little like an unlevel playing field, white South Africans in government would say, you know what, it's better for you. This is much better for you. No, but Ashley, coach, that doesn't feel better for me. And you feel better now? Yeah, I guess I do. If you want to feel more better, we'll come and burn your whole damn village to the ground. You like that? You don't? Then shut up and go away. And somewhere in the 90s, all of that came to an end with the emancipation of Nelson Mandela, and he becoming the first black black president in South Africa. And so now apartheid is this thing of the past, but it's still a big deal. And as you know, several weeks ago, the main Nazi in South Africa, Eugene Terreblanche, was beaten to death by two of his black African employees. And I don't know if you know that, it happened. And if you can look up Terreblanche on the internet, he's like this bearded white man who lived in South Africa his entire life, saying that apartheid was the greatest idea since sliced bread and free beer. And after he died, you can go on the internet and see the funeral for Eugene Terreblanche. And you think there'd be like, 4 toothless people going, right on. There was thousands of people, and you can see these awful photos of over 3,000 people surrounding his coffin, Sieg-heiling it as it goes to its final resting place. So it's obvious that South Africa is work in transition. And so what's interesting about South Africa, to me, might be totally boring to you, but to me it's interesting that they had to rewrite their constitution. And they basically had to wipe the chalkboard clean of all the rules and start again. And so the new constitution is ratified in 1996, which is very, very radical. We'll find another country who had to rewrite the whole damn thing and get it ready for prime time. Then it's fairly fascinating. So I'd say to my wonderful audiences every night, I said, are you aware how brand spanking new your constitution is? Does any of that resonate with any of you? They all look down. I'm boring. Okay. I said, have any of you read the Constitution of South Africa? You live here. More faces look at the ground. I said, really? Damn, because I've been reading it for the last 3 days. I think it's fantastic. I said, all of you no doubt at least read the preamble of your Constitution, right? All 257 words? I go, sea of hands for reading the preamble. 2 students' hands go up. I kind of glanced at it, and everyone else was like, dude, don't call me out in front of all these people. I said, okay, well, here it is. We the people of South Africa recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who work to build and develop our country, believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based in democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. To lay the foundation for a society that is democratic and open, in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. To improve the quality of life of every citizen and free the potential of every person. To build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. And I've never read so few words that said so much to address so much. Basically, I'm sure it's the first time any of you ever heard that. I encourage you to go to the internet and just type in, South African Constitution. Boom, you'll be taken right to the government website. You can read it. It basically, in 250 some words, it basically sums up where South Africa was, where it is, and where it needs to go. And a more humble and sober assessment of what a country needs to do to get better, I've never seen in my life. It moved me so that I tried to memorize it. I only wish I had written it. But I really liked it. And because the first sentence basically says, apartheid, whoo! We certainly screwed that up. Sorry. And what preamble of any constitution basically says, damn, we sucked for that. But we honor those who suffered, like Nelson Mandela and people like that. And we also respect those who worked to build South Africa. And that's a reference to white South Africans who gave South Africa agriculture, who gave the infrastructure, the electronic grid, the waterways. And it's non-white labor who built the South African cities like Pretoria and Durban and Cape Town. But it's the white South Africans who basically laid the plans down. And so the preamble basically says, white South Africans, black South Africans, we're all in the house. And remember, if you live here, this is your country. And then you can fairly get beaten over the head in repetition about democracy and freedom and social justice. And then this beautiful idea of one of the duties as a South African is to help free the potential of every person, to free the potential of yourself and all of those around you. And the most beautiful and poetic part about the thing is the last line that basically says, if only we aspire to these great social values and reach for the highest possible, bit of fruit on the highest branch, being democratic and free and united. Only then do we get to say that we're a sovereign state in the family of nations. Basically, we get to sit down with the rest of the world and say, South Africa's in the house, and not 1 second before it. And that is a hell of a thing for a country to take on. And it just shows me, at least, that many things are possible with Homo sapiens, the species, that not all is over yet. South Africa has a really unenviable rear view, really awful. But it seems to me they're doing their damnedest to run into the future with sprinting shoes on, and they're really making an effort. Yeah, there's going to be setbacks, and there's going to be bumps on that road to progress, but I think they're on it, and I think they're pushing it as hard as they can. And so it was a very uplifting, inspirational time I was there, to the point where I'm still trying to get my head around the lessons that I learned when I was there. And this is only a month ago, or 5 weeks ago. My head is still fairly ringing from the experience. So I came out of there, and I bounced back to my beloved America, and now I'm 20, 30 shows back into America. And there's a lot of problems here which are, frustrating to me, because I think that we're capable of so much more. There's an interesting state in America, Mississippi. It's not only a state of the union, it's also a state of mind. You'll often see men and women with flapping gills on the sides of their necks and twitching primordial tails behind their skirts or overalls, and a lot of crystal meth labs in trailer parks, and a lot of daughters and women with interesting and intense relationships with their fathers and uncles. But I think that there's hope, because they're surrounded by the rest of us. And in Mississippi, there is a town called Fulton. In Fulton, there is a high school called Itawamba Agricultural High. And no doubt, many of you remember this thing that happened a few months ago in the press. There was a young girl named Constance who said that she wanted to go to the senior prom that they were starting to gear up for. And apparently all the seniors had to write their name down on the clipboard to say that they wanted to go to the prom, so they would know how much punch to have in the punch bowl and how many graham crackers to have on the plates, as the teens, needed more energy to get through the night of frugging. And so, unfortunately for Constance, she's a lesbian. And when she said that I want to go in a tuxedo with my girlfriend in a prom gown, the faculty at Itawamba Agricultural High lost it completely. Went, no, a psycho, pervo, dyke bitch besmirching our otherwise perfect, pristine heterosexual event. No. And instead of coming in through the front door and saying, good morning, we're homophobes, and we don't want this damn dyke bitch blowing our event, they went in through the side door and they canceled the entire prom. And a lot of people, somehow burdened with a sense of decency and fair play, said, you're canceling the prom because there's a lesbian in it? Yes, because we're afraid that the students will be upset. And I don't know, I think old people forget what it's like to be young. I'm 49, which is not ancient, but it's not 20. And so my youth is fairly far behind me, but I can remember a bit of my youth. I can still hear in the way back of my mind this hormonal echo of when my hormones used to jump up on their bushy, thick, muscular hind legs, go, "Wow!" and dry hump couches and run through cornfields under full moons and be like all the time. And now my hormones lay down in front of the fire and kind of twitch in their sleep as they run through the fields hunting pheasants or whatever, chasing after foxes and butterflies. And that's one of the many indignities of middle age. Middle age, bring some humor, you're going to need it. A lot. Anyway, I remember my senior prom, like so many of you remember your senior prom. And my senior prom was perpetrated in the year of 1979. And it was awful, because America was in the grip of what is known now as rock classique. And all those songs that are on the Steve Miller's Greatest Hits CD, the ink was still drying on those lyric sheets back in my day. And high school dances were that. It was like bad cover bands going through tepid 3/4 speed versions of what was on the FM. And Monday through Friday, my school gymnasium at the all-boys prep school I was incarcerated at from 6th grade until graduation became this Darwinian Nietzschean proving ground where every sporting implement was hurled at my head. And so every once in a while on a Saturday night, it turned into the dance. And I would go hoping to meet a female. And I would be adhered to the wall over here, all the nervous girls in a line over there, no one dancing, because the awful cover band, A, was awful, B, would tease the students. 3 songs in, no one's dancing. Come on, what are you guys there's a bunch of pussies, get over there. Like, now I'm really gonna recede into the darkness because my face is exploding in acne and I don't know what to do with myself. And you've now made me more overwhelming self-conscious than I already am on any given moment being a teenager. Thanks a lot, awful man in cover band, with your stupid Farrah Fawcett mullet too, and your bad bell bottoms, and your stupid walrus mustache, and your fake-ass choreography. There's these awful bands like, got scratch fever, doo-doo-doo. Like, really? I just threw up in my mouth a lot. And you knew the end of the dance was coming when these guys would go into the worst, awful 18-minute version of Stairway to Heaven, which is not about the students at all. It's about all these fake musicians thinking they had chops, and they all get a solo, bad drums, and as we wind down the road, like, God, you don't want to kill yourself or kill the whole band, or have lightning strike the entire gymnasium and kill us all and keep us out of one more nanosecond of our teenage misery. Anyway, that was what my prom was like. I went to it so you didn't have to. You're welcome. Trust me, it sucked. But I did with my date what everyone else was doing with their date, what you did with your date. No matter who brung you or what you brung to the prom, you were all probably doing what I was doing, wantonly groping the pudenda of my date. And I learned that word, it's Latin for the naughty bits. I learned that in 6th or 7th grade, and I remember it distinctly because it made my Latin teacher go into 9 shades of crimson when he said it. Pudenda. Pudenda. Like, what does that mean? Crimson, genitalia. Genitalia. And I wrote down pudenda. That's a naughty bit of Latin. I'm going to use that later on stage. Anyway, and so what were you doing? Of course you were. Why? Because you're some awful pervo teen? No, because you are a teen. You are alive. You have not become burdened by credit debt or taxation or a real life and rent. So you're young and you're like, that's what you're supposed to do. That's how all of us got here. One night some guy got a bright idea. I know, ding! And the woman, this again? And that's how we got here. All of us, okay? And so if you were at the prom doing your thing, hoping for hot front or backseat action later on when this awful event was over, and if you looked over there and saw 2 girls, one in a tuxedo and one in a prom gown dancing, would your reaction be A? Oh, that's disgusting! Or, I hope they get some too. And go back to what you were doing. I bet it'd be the latter. And like, would you care that much? Because you know the truth. There's been gay everything. You know, gay pirates, gay samurai, gay cavemen. No one ever thinks about gay cavemen except for me and now you. Now, well, think about it. There had to have been gay cavemen. And if you can be taken back to some ancient age, and there's Cave Avenue, there's 10 caves, a gay caveman lives in one of them, find the gay caveman's cave, go. And you take a quick power walk down Cave Avenue, and they're all kind of the same, kind of these fissures in the rock with greasy black smoke on the roof because they're cooking inside. There's bits of excrement and gristle and bone everywhere, and it stinks, and it's fairly desperate and awful, except for one cave. That is like swept, smells nice, the fire's outside. There's cave etchings on the wall that are pretty avant. Like, wow, that's a beautiful buffalo with wings breathing fire. That's trippy. I want to meet this caveman. Damn, I want to party with this caveman. He's quite that's the gay caveman's cave. And now you have to go find the gay caveman. Well, they're all at the watering hole. Try your luck. And there's a bunch of huge, burly proto-men picking lice off their proto-scrotums. And they all look kind of the same, these big hulking men-like things, except for one who has this noticeable lack of body hair. Like, one found out about waxing. And look at those abs, look at those pecs. He's getting ready for thong season. Would that be the gay one? Over here, yes it is. And so there's been gay everything. Why freak out about it? Almost all of us have someone gay in our family tree, if we want to admit it or not, if you know about it or not. So why wouldn't there be a gay high school student or someone gay at your prom? The fact that Itawamba Agricultural High's faculty saw fit to deny access to all the students because one was gay is really, at least one, was really awful to me, because basically they took one mere mortal American teenage girl and said, you are the reason there's no prom. Thanks a lot, lesbian. And I think it's hard enough to be a teenage person. I don't remember my teenage years all that well, but I do remember a lot of it was just completely awful. And it was a fair miracle that I reached age 20. And I think that young people, when they reach age 20, should be given some kind of early life achievement award. And if you're also teenage and gay, it would be a tricky bit of multitasking. And obviously, perhaps 1 or 5 of you or whatever are gay, and at one point you were teenage and gay. That must have been pretty rough at times. There must have been some interesting turns in that road that were quite difficult and quite hard to take. And some of you perhaps suffered at the hands of your peers or your parents or your friends, and that must have been difficult. And I'm sorry if you had some bumps in the road, but that's part of America that we're going to have to work on. And so many years ago, when I was a mere lad, in like 1851, I come rolling into school in September for 10th grade. And I walk in and I assess, all my students, because, those days everyone's changing, everyone's growing, or their voices are changing, because we're all teenaging, kind of hurling ourselves at puberty. And I come walking in, it's like 1975, 1976 or thereabouts, and I see that we have a few gay seniors. And like, I can tell, I've got good gaydar. I'm like, okay, you're gay, but you're holding it in pretty well. You're gay, you got a little bit of gay fire. You want to blow that out, pal, because you're never going to survive senior year. And there's this one poor bastard, his last name was Mulberry. Mulberry, I don't know, something happened to him in that summer of 70-something where he just kind of exploded in gayness. Like, he was so gay he could not contain it. There's no asbestos uniform that could be put on. He walked into the school like the singer in Rammstein in the first number, this ball. And I saw him, no! I want to put him out with a CO2 tank in the end of the... You're never going to survive senior year. He walked down the hall, hello, September. Like, no! And for some reason, this guy was in my history class. And traditionally, history was taught to me by disinterested football coaches. And the way to be a coach at my school, you had to be a teacher. So like, well, the teachers are the coaches, and they're the teachers, and they're the coaches. But when they wanted the team to win, they'd bring in a real coach who could really coach. And they'd say, you have to be a teacher as well. But I don't teach, I'm a coach. Well, we know, but you'll teach history. How do I do that? You read 5 pages ahead of the class, and you are a history teacher, which obviously is really not the way to teach history, because you just don't give a damn. When you know 5 pages more than the class, what good are you really? And the most interesting thing ever said to me in like 4 years of bad teachers of history in high school to me was Nebuchadnezzar, learn it, live it, love it. Then he went back to sleep, and history turned into endless study halls. You got ready for bio or chem or whatever. And so I had this gay senior in my 10th grade history class for some reason. And one day, my history coach writes this kid's name on the blackboard that makes fun of it. And instead of saying Mulberry, he writes Moberry, like Ho-Mo-Berry. And he writes a huge M and a huge O and a little berry, like you can't not see Mo, like Ho-Mo. And the entire class, except for me and Mulberry, exploded in laughter. And I didn't think it was funny, and I'm not exactly Mr. PC, but I saw that and went, you know what, that's not funny. You've just green-lighted that kid to get his ass kicked. And everyone else thought it was funny, and Mulberry starts nearly crying out of humiliation. And so people laugh even more because some kid's crying. And so then the history coach reads out the roll call, and he gets to Mulberry. He goes, Mo-berry, and the place explodes in laughter again, and Mulberry has to say, here, and he, 9 shades of crimson. He's mortified. And so finally the class lets out, and all my douchebag peers run down the hallway and spread the news about what the history coach did. And when a teacher basically greenlights homophobia, everyone else in the school gets to pile on. And by the end of the day, the school day, the kid had had his face flushed down the toilet a number of times, and eventually he went into his dorm room, locked himself in, and slashed his wrist. wrists. And thankfully, he's not a good cutter. He didn't die. But he left the school immediately, and he never came back. It was around the Christmas break. And so we come back to school after Christmas is over, and nothing was ever said. Like, the guy just disappeared. And as an older man looking back, I think it would have been really great if some teacher or the headmaster took everyone from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade and put us in the school gymnasium and said, okay, you little bastards, we just had a student leave here with the wrists hanging open and a bunch of blood coming out because you all teased him that he was homosexual. Hands up for anyone who's proud of that, you little bastards. And someone should have read us the riot act for a good 2 hours about how that's not really the way that you're supposed to go into this amazing America as a frickin' homophobe, you know? And because I'm just saying, for a country that brags about how free and brave it is, why would homophobia have any place? Because homos are a bunch of pussies. Really? Your family tree is full of them. Like, so go ahead and hate these people who you're related to, but it's nothing you can help. Like, I can't help the fact that I like women. I remember 1967 when I kidnapped my mother's copy of Playboy she was sending to her stepfather. It was her normal Christmas present to her stepfather, Doc. I never met the guy. He drank himself to death before I could ever meet him. But apparently my grandmother's new husband liked Playboy, so every Christmas my mom would send him the Christmas issue. And one time I saw it, and I'm like, oh, pictures, I'll take that into my room. And I remember looking through this Playboy going, wow, I don't know what I'm into, but I'm into this more than Batman, more than cake. I mean, this is something. But I did not understand why. There's some deep instinctive thing like, I don't even need air. I'll just live in my room with this magazine. I'll starve to death of this damn thing and be just fine, thank you. And I hear my mom, where did that magazine go? And she comes into my room, she's like, oh! I'm like, no! No! I really need that magazine. You're like 5 years old! Lady, I will kill you in your sleep. You don't give me back that magazine. And that's when I knew. And it's nothing I could help. I did not check the box. Heterosexuality, please. Thank you. And it just happened to be, you know, the bolt of cloth that I'm cut from. And so when someone says, no, it's bad schooling, it's liberals, they're the queers. Really? Well, the last couple of years of American politics has taught me otherwise. When I see government people in men's rooms somewhere in the Midwest tapping their toe to get a pair of balls put into their hand. Come on! I mean, really? What are we, frickin' 9? Anyway, and so when I saw what happened to this young girl, who's just a teenage girl in America, when I saw this hatred heaped upon this mere mortal teenager, I was outraged, I was furious, like many of you were. But what I did not want was to be alone in America with my anger. What I wanted was consensus, I wanted community. And you and I can disagree all the time on a lot of things, and I think it's fantastic. It means that we're processing information, it keeps the blood thin, is one of the most inherent parts of keeping a democracy clear, and the engine firing on all cylinders is to disagree all the time. It's the only way anything gets upgraded, through disagreement and testing of the hypotheses. You know, like you have to, like, will it work? Put it, like, road test it, put it out there. It fell apart, then we have to build it better. And that's why I like democracy, because everyone gets to argue and be an opinionated pain in the ass. And when some people say, Henry, you are a very opinionated person, I say, that's just your opinion. And that's one of the quintessential things about being an American, is like too many damn opinions. That's why they made the internet, for you to log on with anonymity and hurl invective with impunity. You can be on there all day long, you little coward. Elvis 41. And you're gonna say, I always put my full damn name. You always know where it's coming from. I'm the John Hancock of the internet. I'll just say it right to your face. I know it's coming back. And I'm sure a lot of you log on and say, here's my name. You got a problem with what I said? So what? Democracy, you know, I love that. And so what I did not want was to be alone in my wonderful America waving my arms about what happened to this poor girl. What I wanted was a whole bunch of people angry. And so I don't do Facebook. I'm not I do not Twitter, and I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying, social network, you're my social network. As far as what is going on, I get information from the world, but as far as like, who's your people? You. Who's my stripe? Who's my tribe? You. Who are the people who I talk to, think about all the time? You. And that is why I stay on the road, listen as much as I can, read as much as I can, and I wanted the people who come to my shows to be as outraged as me about what's happening with this girl Constance. And it seems to me, in this century, we're 10 years in with 90 to go. Your age right now plus 90, not you or I, are getting out of this century alive. And that is one thing that puts us on one big same page. So what if you and I could treat this century as a 10-year-old child? Like, let's treat the century as a human being, and it would be a 10-year-old kid. And a 10-year-old, as obstreperous as they can be, not wanting to go to bed and professing not to listen, the fact is that they do. And I think our job is to steer this new century and make it ours, and make it different when we leave it than what it was when it started. And I don't want to have to depend on people in the next century to get it right. I want change in this country before I die. I guess because I'm selfish and I want the quick Hollywood ending. I guess I want to take the victory lap and get the attaboy from a bunch of young whippersnappers who see me jogging around the track 98 years old in my adult diapers and say, wow, you're one of the people who change things. That's right, you little bastard. And so I want you and me to be the ones who are remembered in American history as the ones who did not sit down on the job, who stood up in the face of this stuff and said, no more of this. Because America, they say it's a Christian nation. I'm not going to argue that point. I'm not here to blaspheme or challenge anyone's faith, but I also think it's a rock and roll nation. We gave the world the Ramones. We gave the world Jimi Hendrix and John Coltrane. And so I want this country to be a 24/7 P-Funk block party, and I think we can have it. I want the world to be the blue-green Mardi Gras fun ball spinning gently in space, little dreamer me. But I think we can have it. In fact, I demand it, and I demand it from myself, and in a way I demand it from you, because I think that we're both good for this. And what do we do to get on the stick? Come down very forcefully on these issues, not to the point of violence, but to the point of real outrage when you see this happening in your family, at some family dinner, or in your community, at your school, in your coven, whatever that you do on the weekend. It's not for me to point fingers. I'm just saying this kind of thing, like racism and homophobia, in the freest, most amazing rock and roll country in the world, it truly has no place. And there was a soapbox under my feet for the last several minutes. It's gone. They'll never see it again in the next 7 hours. And so there's that. Here's something else. A bit of a bone to pick with all of you, which is an outrageous thing that I would have a complaint with you. First, you should know a few things. I like you more than you'll ever understand. I am fairly desperate for your attention and your approval. It's true. And my affection for you is fairly unconditional and fairly, it knows no bounds whatsoever. However, my fear of you eclipses my great affection for you. And my fear of you is that you're not necessarily going to storm the stage like the Bastille and do me great harm. I hope you don't. But my great fear is somehow letting you down, disappointing you, or you thinking that I don't want to be here, that I'd rather be somewhere else, that I'm dialing this in from some great distance, that I'm in some way being disingenuous. And hopefully you understand that, I'm one of those people who cannot wait to come on stage, and eventually I'll have to pay to be on stage. And hopefully it won't happen too soon, but that's why I save my money. It'll cost you $300 an hour to stand in front of 8 people. I'm in! Because I am one of those people compelled to say many things before I finally fall over. So what possible complaint could I have that you're sitting in your awful seats with your asses going numb underneath you? What possible complaint could I possibly have with you? You showed up, your end of the deal is done, now it's all on me. No big deal. But what complaint is it? My complaint is you don't like me enough. That is astounding. What a bold thing to say. My complaint is exactly that, though. You don't like me enough. That's a bitch, isn't it? I wish you were obsessed with me. That's what I want. I want to have to do 10 nights in this building due to the demand of St. Louis, Missouri. And it's not a monetary concern. I don't want a fleet of Lamborghinis and a bunch of trick-ass bitches. I drive a Subaru, I eat out of cans, I'm fine, truly. But what I don't want is to have to leave the road. I like my Bon Jovi mobile. I like no nights off. The thing that lets me down is when you can somehow live without me. And that happens every year around Thanksgiving, when you throw me under my tour bus to go hang out and go into exercises of great hypocrisy. And what would the exercise of hypocrisy be? On Thanksgiving, you do something awful. You hang out with people who you hate, members of your family. And be honest, honest, you hate these people. They're miserable bastards. You disagree with them from age 4 to now. Henry, that's an awful thing to say. It is an awfully true thing that I'm saying. And so many of you get into some awful car, you drive some unbelievable amount of miles to go into some evil-smelling home and have some really awful 5-hour-long argument with your douchebag father-in-law, and the teeth get loosened, the lips get bloody, it takes 5 stolies going down your neck to be able to sit down around the table and even think of eating that awful, obscene, overcooked turkey, which tastes like putrid sawdust in your mouth. I'm in hell with this guy I hate from kill him. And then afterwards you lie again when you hug this miserable bastard. I love you. No, you don't. And then you get back in the car, you drive another 11 hours back to your awful hovel and hurl yourself back into your place of employment, which was torn from the pages of a Dickens novel. I want no part of it. And so somehow you can live without this. That astounds me. Anyway, I am usually kicked off the road around Thanksgiving as America abandons me for hypocrisy and crass consumerism, where they storm the gates of Walmarts and fill their shopping carts full of lead-based paint-covered toys imported from China so the kids can nibble the paint off, ingest the paint, and then for the rest of their lives think 20% slower. Like, really? Dumb kids and no fun for me. What's the upside to this? You know, free gin? I don't get it. Come on, you should be with me. And so it sucks for me because I like about 360 shows a year. That would be okay for me. And so I get off the road completely gutted. And believe me, I take it very personally, bastards. And so I get off the road. And management knows that I get, very, very bad. About 3 days after I get back to my utilitarian hovel, management will call to make sure that I'm doing okay. Management likes me, but management loves 15% of my action. And management knows if I hurl myself off the roof of my utilitarian hovel and take a header in the driveway, his 15% of my meager action dries up, and no more sushi for Big Boy. Because he loves this continual flow of Toro going down his fat neck, as begrimed in oil as it will be in the future. He still wants it. And if I'm gone, no more sushi. It's back to Denny's for this guy. So he calls his property to make sure the talent is okay. And he always speaks in the plural, like we're in this together. Are we okay? Are we depressed? Are we feeling that no one will ever want us again? Is that hard to take at our state and station in life? And he tells me to cheer up, that someone wants to have a meeting with me. I say, someone wants to meet with me? Really? He said, yeah, Henry, a name you've never heard. A man named Kurt Sutter wants to meet you. I go, wait a minute, Kurt Sutter? I know that name. And I go, where do I know that name? And I remember where I know that name from. I know the name Kurt Sutter because I'm a fan of a television show which ran in America up to a few years ago. It ran for 7 seasons. It was called The Shield. And The Shield, okay. Many SHIELD fans in our wonderful country. The SHIELD was a show about corrupt LA cops, and it gave me, for 7 magnificent, brutal seasons, what The Sopranos ceased to give me after 2, which was fantastic amounts of gratuitous violence. And the first 2 seasons of The Sopranos, Gandolfini was fairly lean, and he was a death machine. It was fantastic. Good morning, Tony. Yes! Magnificent! Here's a Phillips head screwdriver. Oh, that was awesome. And then by season 3, hugs, emotion, tears. No, meat cleavers, come on. And the SHIELD was nothing but violence. Like every 5 seconds, someone has to die. It was great. And every episode would start the same. It was the greatest hits of the violence of the previous episode. Last week on the SHIELD. I'm stomping on your head! Yay! And the only thing that the SHIELD got wrong is it ended. And I would watch the SHIELD with a great deal of interest. And at the end of every episode of the SHIELD, they'd have the names and the credits. And I remember the name Kurt Sutter was floating white letters on the black background. And I did a little investigating into Kurt Sutter. And I found out that Kurt Sutter wrote some of the episodes, he directed some of the episodes, he acted in some of the episodes, and he produced some of the episodes. So basically, the guy does TV, every possible angle you can imagine, and he does it really well. I became a fan of Kurt Sutter. And after 7 seasons of The SHIELD, FX said to young Kurt Sutter, "You're a man with a lot of promise. here's 9 trucks of money. Do whatever you want. And he started a show called The Sons of Anarchy. And that's what he does now. All right. So that puts Kurt's name perhaps in a different context here. That's Kurt basically doing what he wants. That's his show. And I'm a fan of that one as well because Kurt's name is on it. He does really good work. And so I say to management, Kurt Sutter wants to meet me about what? He goes, I don't know. But, you know, someone from his office called. He wants to have a meeting with you. It's several days from now. Here's the day. Here's the time. Here's the location. Don't screw it up. Okay, and so days later I go meet with Kurt Sutter, who's a very cool guy, and I sit down with Kurt. I said, so why am I here? And he said, you know my show Sons of Anarchy? I said, yeah man, big fan. He said, good, here's the deal. We're about to start writing the 2nd season, and there's a character we're thinking about putting into the show, and I want to tell you about the character. I said, well, do tell. And for several minutes he tells me about this neo-Nazi, hate-fueled utilitarian killing machine, who will like rape, pillage, maim, stab, perforate, sever, and otherwise inconvenience person or property, and then go home, eat dinner, and not lose a wink of sleep over the wretched harm he's done to an entire county. And for several minutes he tells me about this diabolical, awful human being. I said, Kurt, why are you telling me about this hate-fueled neo-Nazi killing machine? He said, we'd like to know if you'd like to be that hate-fueled neo-Nazi killing machine. I said, interesting. What about me says to you, white power? And he said, nothing. And that's what's really interesting. This person is so against your grain that we think maybe an interesting dynamic would be realized by putting you so against who you are, which you have to admit is a fairly interesting way of going about casting. It makes Kurt Sutter, in my mind, a bit of a visionary, or at least a man who's never seen me act. And well, that has to be discussed, at least for a nanosecond, because somewhere in the 80s, someone came up to me and said, so you're an angry young man. That's right! Okay, breathe, Attila, breathe. Take it easy. How about a career in music? I can't sing and I can't find the beat. Not necessary all the time with punk rock. Here's a microphone. You can jump and down, up and down like a psychotic asshole and act out. What do you say? Sign me up! And so I rang that bell pretty hard for a while. And somewhere in the 80s, Hollywood directors started coming up to me and, I've seen you, man. You're a psycho. Can you act? I said, yeah. Can you pay? Because I'm starving to death. And I have no illusions. I come from the minimum wage working world of the late 70s and early 80s. I am basically trained to clean this venue after you leave, or park your car, or clean up after your animal, or ask if you'd like a larger order with fries shoved into your bag as you drive by. That is what I'm trained to do, and no doubt before it's all over I will return to that wage. And it's no big deal. It's not bad work. It's just good work if you can get it. And so that's where I come from. So I have no illusions. And so I've been told, hey, you suck, get out of my office all my life. And so why would I have any trepidation or fear to walk into a Hollywood casting agency and go, blah, 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 blah. That sucked? Am I humiliated? I'm used to it. And I'd love to tell you that I've grown a thick skin and none of it gets to me. And the older I get, the thinner my skin gets. And I was like, ow, that hurt. But at least I'm busy. And so that's what keeps me heading up the road. So I started to be in films. And I've been in a lot of them. And you can find them at any large electronics store or any Walmart in these large barrels where they keep all the DVDs that seemingly no one wants. And they have them in these massive vats of consumerist opportunity. And it's never genre specific, it's always a price concern. There's the $10.99 VAT, I'm not in any of those. And then there's the $5.99 VAT, the $3.99 VAT, and then the last VAT, the 99-cent VAT, has a peculiar look to it. It's moving. It's like, what's going on over there? You'll walk over to the 99-cent VAT of DVDs and see that it's a bunch of DVDs that have been scotch taped to live kittens. And the sign says free DVD with every kitten, or free kitten with every DVD. Get these things out of here. And so either out of desire to see a bad film or pity for an animal, you liberate the Walmart from, with your kitty DVD package. Then you get it home, you being the wonderful person you are, you carefully snip away the tape from the kitty, and the kitty goes to, scratch your couch, and you survey enjoy your new DVD. And you flip over and look at the back, and you'll see a man on the ground, on the back, in a pool of blood, his face being attacked by 4 ferrets. You're like, oh, that looks awful. That's Henry! Oh, man! And you'll flip it over like, Ferret Apocalypse 4. Then the only interesting thing about that was the idea of 1, 2, and 3. Where someone sat down after 1 in a board meeting somewhere like, you know what? I smell franchise. Bingo! And so I'm in those. Why? Because between tours, I'm unemployed, and life is short, and I want to try stuff. It's like, hey, be in our bug movie. I'll be in that bug movie. You'll be in the swimming pool that ate Minneapolis. Well, let's see how that's going to work. And trust me, you'd have to be a foolish actor in any of these films to think that it's going to be your way to get into Streetcar Named Desire. The smart actor in these things know that every day you go to work putting lipstick on a pig. And so many films I've walked into the film on the day I'm supposed to show up, and they look at me, they go, okay, the clothes you're wearing, that's your outfit. I have to wear this every day? Yeah, because we're out of money. And at lunch, I'm like, wait a minute, these are SpaghettiOs. I haven't had these since 4th grade. It's all we can afford. It's an indie film. And so I'm in those, and I'm grateful for the work. I'm not too cool for school. And so I take the work seriously, but never myself. So anyway, sorry, Kurt Sutter, right? So I say to Kurt, I say, yeah, man, I'll be a milkman in your show. I'll be a neo-Nazi. I'll be any damn thing you want me to be. I want to work with you, man. What do I do next? And he said, nothing. Today's meeting, I want to bring you in, check you out, and gauge your level of interest. I said, okay. So what happens? He said, what happens is we start writing this season. We might not use this character because we change our minds quite often, or we might use the character, but it might not be you. And that, the rest of the people I work with might not be all that interested in the idea of you being in the show. And I said, look, man, I got it. I understand. And I go, Kurt, look, we're both adults. We're both grown up. Let's not bullshit each other. I'm not going to be in your show. You know it, and I know it. But I'm very selfish. So let me selfishly take this as a compliment that you thought enough of me to bring me in for this thing, and good luck with season 2 of Sons of Anarchy. I will be watching it with a great deal of interest on DVD, which I'll buy used on Amazon 2 years from now. And some people say, oh, Henry, you're frugal. Now I would urge you to pick up speed, lose a syllable, and just call me what I really am. Cheap. Anyway, I shake his hand and say, hey, Kurt, good luck with your show. And he said, Henry, we're going to let you know what we're going to do as soon as possible. I said, fair enough, man. Good to meet you. And as I walk to my car, I start doing a thing that I've been doing since about 9 years of age, where I reject the person before the person has a chance to reject me. It is an infantile coping mechanism. It's like walking into a job the first day of employment saying, I quit, just because you don't want the boss to be able to say, you're fired! And it's really not the way to go through life. I do it all the time. And so as I'm walking back to my mighty Subaru, I'm thinking to myself, well, that guy was an asshole. That whole sit down, have a cup of coffee thing, nice ruse to make me think that you're friendly. And like, I don't want to be in your awful show anyway, because truthfully, this show sucks. You're an asshole, and boy, did I just dodge a bullet there. I could have been gainfully employed for 6 months on one of those popular shows in America. That was close. And by the time I get to my car and I'm back on the highway, I come to the conclusion that I have no idea where I've just been for the last 35 minutes of my life. And by the time I get back to my office, I'm like, what's a car? Where have I been? I have no idea. I've denied the entire morning. And so hours later, my manager calls to see what's going on, smelling sushi. And so he says, so how was our meeting? I said, what meeting? Because I have put it away. He said, oh, are we 9? And we're the child who doesn't want to be here. Click, hung up on his ass too. Reject them all. Get back to work. And so I go back to work, and weeks go by, and the phone rings again. It's my manager. He says, are you sitting? I said, yeah. He said, congratulations, you got the part in Sons of Anarchy. You are now a dramatic actor in episodic television. I have the contract in front of me. I'm about to forge your name in 4 places. What do you think of them apples? And I said, I think it's yet one more thing that I got that I have no qualifications for whatsoever. And he said, don't say that. if there's anyone in the room. Which means he agrees with me, but he doesn't want that awful fact to get out. That's, you know, something happens to the 15% of the action. And so all of a sudden I'm in this big-ass TV show, and several days later it's my first day of work, which is the welcome back barbecue and the read-through of the first episode, which I'm in. And so I'm standing shyly off to the side, watching all the actors who I recognize because I'm a fan of the show, as they reconnect from several months of being away from each other. They have camaraderie because they've endured a full season with each other, and now they're pals. I am merely the neo-Nazi who's going to be goose-stepping through their series. And what I was afraid of was walking over to the actress and saying, "Hi, I'm Henry, the neo-Nazi who's going to try and act in your show," only to have them say, you know, deep into the method of acting, "Get away from us, neo-Nazi boy. We can't be civil to you until the rap party. Go away." And so I didn't want the rejection, so I just kind of stayed to myself and ate food. And eventually, almost every single actor in the cast came up to me, introduced themselves to me, welcomed me to the set, said, "Look, Henry, we work really hard on this show, but we goof around a lot, so if you screw up a line, we all screw up. Don't worry about it. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're so happy you're here." These people could not have been nicer to me. There's not one jerk in that cast. They're all champions. So I sit down, we read through the first episode, and then all of a sudden I'm gainfully employed, pulling my weight in the world as an actor in a big-ass TV show. And The Sons of Anarchy is a show about outlaw bikers in Northern California. So basically, it's a show about bad guys. And I'm a bad guy in a show about bad guys. And in a show like that, there's bad guys you root for, like outlaw bikers, and bad guys you don't root for, like neo-Nazi scum. And so there's fight scenes, obviously. In a show like this, there's bikers, babes, and beatdowns. And so certainly I'm in fight scenes, and not one single fight do I ever get to win. I don't even get to hit a biker all that well. I just get thrashed by these outlaw bikers. And so on the days we would shoot fight scenes, the stunt coordinator, this magnificent liar, he would come up and explain how fun it's going to be to get your ass kicked for the next 9 hours. And he would tell you that it's going to be painless. He was a magnificent fabricator. He'd go, "Henry, today we're going to do a conflict thing. It's going to be super fun. In the scene of fake conflict, the actor's going to come up and go like, ugh, because we don't really hit. It's, you know, fake. That's why they call it acting. The actor's going to go, ugh, and you're going to go, ooh. You're going to act like it really hurt. And then the actor's going to go, and you're going to go, and then the actor is going to take you and throw you, and you're going to, as an I, am going to hit the ground and land like a sack of meat. You want, no, Henry, no. You're going to roll out of the fall. We're going to teach you how to roll, displacing the impact of the fall across your entire body, and you won't get so much as a scratch. And I said, "Pal, I appreciate your confidence in me, but I am a spastique. I am a klutz. I cannot dance. I cannot run. When you throw a ball to me, I think you're throwing it at me, and I wonder what I've done to enrage you. I cannot find the one in a Ramones song. I have no inherent timing whatsoever. Even my heart goes doom, 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 doom. I suck at anything that has to do with coordination. The one thing I can do is fall with a violence that is breathtaking. And that's true. When I fall, it is fantastic, and it's always in public. And maybe some of you have had the misfortune of seeing someone in public take what they call a nasty spill, where they hit the ground so hard, like some poor old thing slips in the ice, and the wham! And you can almost hear the pelvis crack in half. Someone hits the deck so hard it hurts your teeth when they land. You're like, oh, damn! Oh, I can't even look. Oh! I fall that hard about once a month, truly, because I have no coordination and I never look where I'm going. I'm like, wow, and you know, groceries fly out of my arms, things break, I have to buy them again, and I'm always found by someone who looks at me and says, "Are you okay, sir?" Which makes me realize I'm getting old. And so months ago, I was in New York City. It's like one of the most amazing creations on the face of the earth is Manhattan, New York, and I'm walking down to the East Village to go to a grocery store. I always try and go to when I'm there. And I'm not looking where I'm going. I'm just looking at New York because it's so fascinating to me. And my left foot hits a bit of sidewalk that's sticking up. And all of a sudden, I am airborne with my backpack flying ahead. And then I can articulate one thought, and that is, boy, this is really going to hurt when I hit the ground so hard, like with the entirety of my body weight, like on my wrist, like, wow, I'm going to pay for that for the rest of my life. And so I'm on the ground vibrating in pain, like a rung bell, for like a good 30 seconds. As I look ahead of me, and like New York is moving on, thousands of pairs of feet on either side of me. And some conscientious New Yorkers are stepping over my backpack, but most of them, as they get to the next red light and curse under their breath. And so finally a New Yorker stops, and I see a pair of men's shoes in front of my face. I'm like, oh, finally, someone to the rescue. And a man's face peers down and looks at me, stops, breaks into a huge smile, and says, "Hey, I love your show!" and kept walking. That happened to me. At least he's a fan. You know, and so that's how I fall. So I try and tell the stunt coordinator, pal, when I hit the deck, you're going to hear it, you're going to feel it, and I'm going to do it over and over because I can't roll. He said, well, this is going to be a very long day, longer versus some. And so we start doing this scene, which in which I get dribbled like a middle-aged man ball, you know, picked up by some ridiculously talented actor and thrown into a car. And as the small actor in a show of big actors, one of my many jobs is to make the big guys look good. And so I hurl myself into this car as hard as I can, so the viewers at home get the idea that this blonde-haired, blue-eyed principal actor has an incredible amount of body strength and can take a 180-pound man and hurl him through the air like he's a sack of dry laundry. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm hurling myself into this vehicle as hard as I can, trying to break the car with my body for the viewers at home. That's my job as the supporting actor. No problem there. And after several takes of this, the stunt coordinator comes up between takes and he says, "Henry, you're hitting that car kind of hard." I said, "I'm hitting it as hard as I can, man!" And he said, "We can see that. The capillaries in your eyes are starting to burst. Look, if you hit the car with half the speed, the camera cannot tell the difference. You're through the frame so quickly. The camera does not know. So go at half the speed." I said, "No way. I have to keep it real." He said, "Henry, this is Hollywood. None of it's real. Just go at half the speed." I said, "No. When I sign on the dotted line, you get the whole enchilada." I don't know what Seagal film that's from, but I mean it. And so he goes, "Well, okay." And so we do this scene for at least 11 hours, and I think the thing edits down to like a mere 8 seconds on TV. Anyway, at the end of the day, I leave to go back to my mighty Subaru and go back to my utilitarian hovel. And as the adrenaline leaves my body, I become fully aware of what I've done to it as I click and pop back to my car. And I fold myself into my car, and it sounds like someone crumbling up a bunch of wax paper, like, I go to bed that night in the fetal position, you know, out of pain, having dreams of a man being caned in Singapore. And I wake up in the morning only able to open one eye, like, ow! And there's a line of Tylenol tablets I've strategically placed at the end of the night table. I just chew on them, they taste awful, trust me. And you just wait for the pain to subside so I can go back to the shower and wipe the makeup off my face, which they're going to reapply 80 minutes later as I turn up for another day of white power. And so I'm doing my whole neo-Nazi thing, a swinging cosmopolitan Hollywood actor, doing my thing. And since I'm a small actor in a big show, they don't need me all the time. And so one day, I'm at my office working, and I get an interesting email from a university in Northern California called Sonoma College. And Sonoma College writes me, and they basically say, "Dear Henry, we are writing to inquire if you would like to write and deliver this year's commencement address for our graduating students." And I'm a high school graduate who's never written a speech, so I am in no way qualified. And so I said, "Of course, yes, click and hit send, thinking, what the hell have I done? And it's kind of one of the ways I go through life. The idea that why let, well, the unfortunate circumstance of not having any real talent ever preclude you from getting in way over your head fairly quickly. And so I said, yes, of course. And all of a sudden, I'm now a speechwriter. Oh, no. And so I go to bed that night, only armed with my pen and my steno pad, blank pages staring at me. Like, okay, write a speech. So how does one write a speech? And I come to the conclusion that if I can define the objective, that maybe I can make the speech happen. So I come to the conclusion that the objective is to write down a bunch of things that a young person should hear on his or her graduation day. And so do I have anything to say to that topic? And so I found out 3 nights later of writing for hours at a time that I indeed had a lot to say to that topic. And so unfortunately, no one told me how long a speech is supposed to be. There's no guidelines whatsoever. And so what is a speech, like 80 pages? Do you speak for like 5.5 hours? Do you wear the students down to where they're in this state of like just kind of looking at you with like heavy-lidded eyes? Like, please shut up, just stop it, stop talking, stop it, just stop, close your mouth, close it, shut your face! I don't know. Or is it a pamphlet in length? Congratulations, do good things, hail Satan, later, and then you run? I don't know. I have no guidelines whatsoever. So I write pages and pages, like that's what a young person needs to hear, and I type it all out in my computer, and I print it out in 12-point Times Roman. And I print it out in 12-point Times Roman because 12-point Times Roman makes anyone seem hyper-literate. Your run-on sentences run on, gracefully like a thoroughbred horse. Your typos look like art. And so I sat with this massive sheaf of paper, and I mumbled this speech to myself, very impressed by my own writing. Oh, you are good. That's presidential. That's damn. I think new career path, because boy, you've got it. And unfortunately, one might get too entranced by their own fumes, and I know the danger of that. And I know that when a speech really meets the road is when it's said out loud. So my editor, someone needs to hear this. I need a witness, someone to hear it over and over again and give me a harsh assessment of what I think a young person should hear on their graduation day. And I can think of no better person than this thing that's been working at my company since 1996. And many years ago, when it took one of its claws and ripped itself free of its leathery egg sac as its gestation period came to an end in the backyard, the parents of this thing naively named it Heidi, as if that was somehow going to help things. And in 1996, this thing was hired by a woman who worked at my company who said, we need to staff up, I'm bringing in this woman named Heidi. And so it parked its broom in my driveway, and it came in, and I remember the sound of its hooves on the wooden floor of the office, and how its vertical pupils went razor thin when it assessed me, and how its tail twitched angrily, and how the entire building, the temperature increased, and the smell of sulfur became apparent all over the place. And the first thing, this thing that's been emasculating and hectoring me since 1996, the first thing it said to me was, "So you're my boss?" And the first thing that happened was my right testicle fell out of my pants. And thankfully, I put it on a tray of ice and ran to Cedar Sinai, and I'm intact. Don't you worry about me. And so this thing, which I've renamed the demon has been working at my building ever since. And when I try and make a joke with the demon, who I never call demon, never wanting to be disrespectful or familiar, I call it the demon, like Ms., polite. And so whenever I say, hey, the demon, I pay your salary. I am, in fact, your boss. Say it again, I'll burn this place to the ground! And I instinctively run to the kitchen to get it a cold drink because, I don't want to exacerbate its already bad condition. Anyway, I walk up to the demon's office, an office I'm not allowed to walk into even though I own the building the office is in. And I stand respectfully outside. I go, hey, the demon, I need to read this speech over and over to you over the next few days so you can help me edit this thing. All right, go ahead. And the demon's way of editing is to stop me every few words and tell me what needs fixing. It sucks, fix it! Which is not really all that encouraging. Or the demon will give me helpful visual gestures to let me know how the speech is going, like the ever helpful, wrap it up. So for 3 days I read the speech to the demon, and the demon excises massive chunks of this thing, and the speech goes from like a forest killer down to like, 1 or 2 paltry paragraphs that you can fit on the back of a matchbook. And so I one day read the speech to the demon, and the demon doesn't screech at me. And I said, hey, the demon, I just read the speech, all 40 words of it, and you didn't screech at me. Does that mean that's the final draft? It may not be a message! I took that as that's the final draft. And so, not really believing this thing really PMSs. It seems to always be in a state of PMS. And when I bring that up, thinking I'll bring the smile to this thing's face. Wow, I go get it a cold drink, Anyway, so I reckon I have a final draft of like my speech. And so days later, I fly to Northern California to do this. And there's going to be 2 graduation exercises, the 9 a.m. and the 3 p.m. because there's so many students to graduate. And so I walk in at 8 a.m. into the teacher's lounge at Sonoma College in Northern California. And it's a beautiful campus. And I walk into this room, and there's all these teachers and professors with their hot caffeinated drinks. And they all look at me, and all the conversation stops. And one person says, can we help you? I said, yes, my name is Henry. I'm here to do this speak. You're the commencement speaker. Okay. Oh my God, look at this guy. He's got tattoos. Oh my God, he's wearing skateboard shoes. This is going to be an unmitigated disaster. We should have never let the students pick the speaker. What were we thinking? I've got this. How are you? The students now pick the speaker at Sonoma College, and they've been doing it for 3 years now. And for all the years previous, it was the teachers and the faculty and the president of the university who picked the speaker. And quite often, apparently, it was someone who graduated from the university years before, who now is some captain of industry, who has 9 car dealerships in Northern California, and walks out to the podium in a power suit and extols the virtues of free market capitalism for 90 minutes and wears everyone out. And so they said, let's let the students pick the speaker now, because obviously we don't have any taste, and it's their money and it's their day. And so now the students pick, and somehow they came to the conclusion that it should be yours truly. I went out of my way to not find out how they came to the conclusion that I should be the speaker. I would love to think that they would take all the graduating students and put them in the Coliseum and say, all right, as a single voice, who do you want to have speak at your graduation? Rollins. But you know that's nowhere near the truth. They probably took 3 students. Just, all right, you 3, put your clothes on, come over here. Get in that room and decide who you want to have speak at your graduation. All right. Any of you guys have any ideas? No. Oh, wait, you know that station on TV, the one for losers, VH1? Yeah. There's that show, like I miss the 80s, or I used to be someone in the 80s, or I wish it was the 80s again, or like where'd my hair go, or where was I then, or all those shows, all those guys who like wish they, it was the 80s again. Yeah, my dad, he's obsessed with that because he's kind of, the crisis. And there's that show, and he watches it, and like every 5 minutes there's this guy who talks really fast, and he has an opinion about everything. My dad always gets really agitated, and he goes, oh, dude. He calls me dude, which is really gross. And he goes, dude, we used to thrash to that guy. Dude, we used to funnel out all the seeds, from our stash on the back of that guy's album. Dude. Then he passes out. We should get that guy. He seems pretty desperate. He seems like he'd, be fairly interesting. What's his name? Harry something? All right. Okay, all in favor, say whatever. And I think that's kind of how I got the job. I'm afeared to find out. Anyway, I meet the teachers and the professors, and they're fairly friendly to me, but I can tell they're very skeptical about my appearance. This tattooed man in skateboard shoes is going to deliver a speech. They're terrified. But there's not much time to talk about it because we have to go out and do this thing. And so we all gown up. And since these men and women of academia do this every year, their gowns are custom made, and they sit on an oaken hook in a closet 364 days a year, and then on one great day they put them on, they don their velvet, and they all look really snappy. And I look like a horse's ass, because I'm in rental gear, and my gown sticks stiffly out from my body, single-ply rayon. It's like a purple tinfoil sandwich board. I look stupid, like I'll catch air if the wind blows my way. And my cap falls off my head if I lean in any direction, so I have to kind of balance underneath it, because it's way too big. So I look stupid. And so we all line up. And I think it's best for me to roll my speech like it's a scroll. So I'm holding like this white baton, which just shows you how miserably out of my league I really am. And so we march out to the stage and sit down, and we're facing the students and all the parents in back. It's an outdoor event, hundreds and hundreds of people. And the university president walks up to the podium and welcomes everyone and tells everyone what's going to happen immediately. And then a few more announcements are made. The student president gets up and speaks to his peers for a few minutes, and then a few more minutes go by, a few more announcements, and the university president strides out to the podium and basically says, "Ladies and gentlemen, and now, to deliver the commencement address." And I realize I'm about to go up and deliver the first and easily last speech of my life. And my mouth goes desert dry, and I involuntarily crush my speech in my hand, because I was fairly terrified. And usually, I cannot wait to get out on stage and be in front of a bunch of people. I'm like the dog who ruins the afternoon party by wagging his tail and knocking the teapot off the living room table and jumping up on all of the guests and muddying their cashmere with my paws. But you can't be too mad at the dog, because the dog's just curious and happy to see everyone. That's usually how I am on stage. Like, yay, you showed up, boy, do I have too many things to tell you. That is how I usually am. The shook up can of Coke with the tab popped all over you is, I ejaculate, as someone might say. But on this day I was terrified, because I realized I was pinioned to a podium with a speech, and I don't like having paper to read from. I feel like a sitting duck, or like there's a target drawn on me. And my main fear was that my speech, as hard as the demon and I worked on it, my fear was my speech was not as good as the great achievement